Another question we have here from Alfred. There seems to be a high number of students who need to use the printer on campus. However, there is only one printer in the Ed building. Would it be possible for an extra printer to be placed on campus in the fall when demand will increase?
Is that Alfred Adenuga? I can't tell if it's... Hi, Alfred, good to see you, or part of you. I can't tell with the mask, but it's good to see you. I'm going to ask Art Exner, who is AVP Information Services and whose team has done such a great job keeping us all connected, to respond to that question.
Thank you, Dr. Chase and Alfred, for that question. We will have, as the library reopens, printers in the library. Now, having said that, listening to Dr. Gregory's response to the earlier question, with the library being accessed by appointment only, your question reminds me that we should have a look at the demand for student printing in an unstructured fashion around campus and revisit that decision. So I appreciate the question, and we'll look at that very carefully. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alfred. Good question.
Well, thank you for that response. We have a question here from Hannah. Will course requirements that require peer-to-peer interaction, such as group projects, be adjusted to consider the virtual environment and different time zones? They have not been changed for the summer-spring semester. It has caused difficulties to coordinate group work over 3 different time zones.
Well, it's something we're aware of, and it's a great question when you've got students who are spread, in some cases, literally across the globe right now, trying to coordinate synchronous learning. Apart from asynchronous learning can be a bit of a challenge, but I know that, again, David Gregory, the provost, and his team of academic leaders have been discussing this, and I'll ask him to comment.
Thank you. That's a great question. And we're having a Dean's Council meeting on the 26th of this month, and I will put that item on the agenda for conversation with the deans to remind faculty that during remote teaching and learning, there is the real possibility of time zones taking place amongst the student body. So I would like to think that, that the group assignments will be adjusted accordingly. And, but I will follow up on that particular item with the deans to work with their associate deans and department heads to make sure there's awareness of the challenges of time zones. And I understand Dr. Chase mentioned internationally, but even within Canada, there can be quite a range of time zones and students attending. So I will definitely follow up on that matter with the deans.
Thank you. I missed 2 questions, so I'll go back. Taif asks, well, he addresses this to Dr. Chase. He says, "Hi, Dr. Chase, nice to see you here. My question is to you. Why does it take over a month to get a reply from the office who issues emergency fund? I suggested a few of my fellow students to apply for an emergency fund. Unfortunately, some of them have got a response, but after over a month. Should we name it an emergency fund given that fact?"
Well, that's a fair question, I think, Taif. I'd simply add we've put out over $350,000 in student emergency aid over the past since COVID hit the campus and the country. In some cases, perhaps it's been a little slow. In other cases, I think it's been quite rapid. I'm going to ask John Smith, who has responsibility as AVP Student Affairs for that office. I would think that the number of people who have experienced delays like this, Taif, are small, but let's see what John says. And thank you for the question.
So yes, I have an update as of this morning, actually. I was inquiring about that. We get updates regularly. A couple things. Right at the very beginning, there were some delays as people were putting in their applications and not putting in the documentation at the same time. So there was a little bit of delay matching the supporting documentation with the original applications. What I found out yesterday and this morning was there was one group of students, it's all managed by a spreadsheet, and somehow somebody who was in the spreadsheet clicked on the wrong column and hid one column of students that came in during a certain period. So that's now been fixed and everybody's working hard on that. As of all the applications that weren't hidden by accident, they're up to date within about 3 or 4 days. So anybody who is on that list that actually accidentally got hidden in the spreadsheet, they should be contacted within the next 3 or 4 days. And I will even go as far as to give you a name, which she may not appreciate. But if anything takes more than a week, you should contact Christine McBain. She's my associate director that's in charge of financial aid. And again, this is for undergraduate only. Graduate students have a different mechanism. So for the undergraduate though, we have allotted at some points 9 extra staff just to process these applications. So we're trying to keep on top of them as quickly as possible. But that is the latest information.
Well, thank you. That was quite insightful. We have another question from Alfred. Given that the university is not charging rec athletic fees, what happens to student gym access? And also, what is the fate of our sport teams?
Oh, good question and hard answer. Everybody saw that the CFL has canceled the season. That announcement went out 2 days ago. I think many of you will know that probably about 3 weeks ago now, Canadian inter-university athletics, varsity athletics have been canceled from coast to coast. So there will be no varsity athletic season in 2020-21, which is very, very unfortunate and very hard on the students who are looking forward to playing on a variety of teams. So we regret that. But again, in a context in which it is very clear from what's going on south of the border, where you see wildfire spread of COVID-19 on football teams, university football teams, which have reopened in some places, and they have to shut the whole thing down again. We are simply not going to go there. We are going to protect the health of the students and the university community. That means, unfortunately, that the gym will remain closed. We're not charging rec and athletics because we're not providing a service there until we're absolutely confident that we can do so in a way that is safe to all who would come in and use it.
Thank you. We have another question from Caitlin. If classes of a smaller size, like 30 and under, resume for winter, will there be continued help for students who have chronic illnesses that put them further at risk for a severe physical impact from COVID-19?
If, and that's a very large if, that we're running classes that are larger than the tiny ones we plan this fall, we would have to pay huge attention to the needs of students who are immunocompromised. But Keegan, and indeed, Caitlin, you're the one who asked the question. If I were a betting person, and I'm not speaking to university policy here right now, but if I were a betting person, I would suspect that for January, we will see something very similar to what we're seeing in the fall term. That is very tight restrictions on the number of people on campus. That would only change if we've got a viable vaccine that is widely available, or if, like SARS years ago, COVID-19 suddenly just goes away. And all of the signs from across the planet, name any country you care, this is not going away quickly. So I think you will see in winter, and the decision will be made and announced at the appropriate time, a protocol that will be very similar to what we have in fall. And if anybody's health is at risk, we will need to make the necessary accommodations for that individual. David.
Just to add to that, Caitlin, so for the students who have to come on campus for the studio and labs that are being offered in the fall term, every single student was contacted to make sure that they, first of all, were within the geographical region of Regina and could attend, and secondly, that their health permitted, that they weren't at risk or vulnerable in terms of their health. And without going into details, they just asked a general question. So we have made an effort to make sure that if we're bringing students onto campus, certainly in the fall, we want to make sure that we don't put them at increased risk. And I would assume that something like that would continue if, as Dr. Chase says, there would be courses on campus in the winter. But as Dr. Chase has also said, that's a remote possibility.
We have a question here from Dylan. Thank you for your question. Is there going to be